First, I want to get into some of these rankings, and let's talk about plausible scenarios for teams that actually have a path, to the playoff. Let's look at first what the committee gave us on Tuesday night. This is what they gave us: Georgia, Bama, Oregon, Ohio State, Cincinnati at 5, Michigan still ahead of Michigan State. They doubled down on that because, remember, set aside viewing the games, folks. It's the most asinine thing I've ever said. And I think Gary Barta is a smart guy, but I mean, how would you like to be trotted out to defend the indefensible? Not a fun position to be in. Here's what I would do with the playoff rankings. This is kind of like Klatt's playoff rankings. Georgia, that's easy. I still like Oregon at number 2. Do I think they're the second best team in the country? I don't know. Ohio State 3, Cincinnati 4, Bama at 5, and Michigan State at 6. Does that really matter? Is that any good? I'm not sure. I'm sure you guys are all up in arms about what I gave you right there. Is it right? Nah, I don't really know. What does matter, though, is the playoff rankings. And more so than what is happening this week, late in November, November 16th, it's about roads and plausible scenarios for how teams get to the college football playoff. So let's think about that for just a moment, okay? Let's start with the top 2 in the playoff rankings. Clearly, Georgia, who is already in the SEC championship game, has the easiest path to the playoff. Even if they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game, as long as they're undefeated at that point, I think we all agree that they would still go to the playoff. So Georgia's kind of this team that's you can basically shoe in one of the 4 spots for the Georgia Bulldogs. Alabama is a different scenario. Now, granted, they've got a hard schedule here in the back end of the season. Arkansas, then the Iron Bowl, then potentially Georgia. And while I don't think that they're going to go through that undefeated, it's certainly a scenario where they could. If they do, they will absolutely be in the playoff. That's a no-brainer. Now, if they lose one of those games as a 2-loss team, I don't think the committee's going to put them in as a 2-loss team. Maybe that's against my better judgment with the way that they view Alabama generally, but I just don't think that they will. So I think Bama is basically either going to be the number 1 team in the country running the table, or they're going to be out. It's kind of all or nothing for Alabama. So that leaves potentially a spot open. This is occupied by Ohio State, this 4th spot, but remember, it's really just kind of a Big Ten placeholder. As long as the Big Ten champion, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, or Michigan State, only has 1 loss, the Big Ten champion is going to go. Again, if they only have a loss. So there's 2 spots, right? Georgia's kind of a shoo-in. Ohio State's kind of a shoo-in. Bama's a toss-up, all or nothing. Oregon, if they win out, we're probably suggesting that they go, but remember, they've got to play Utah this week in a game that's going to be very tough, and probably Utah again in that Pac-12 championship. Cincinnati's got their toughest opponent. So let's talk about those scenarios. I think, folks, if you just go based on kind of Vegas, you've basically got 2 spots held and 2 spots basically up for grabs, okay? That means that you've still got Cincinnati alive, Notre Dame alive, Oklahoma State alive, Oklahoma alive, maybe Wake Forest with an outside chance. Those teams are still alive. Even OU, folks, going all the way down to 13, just play it out for a moment and you'll see exactly what I'm thinking about. Let's say SMU beats Cincinnati, Georgia beats Bama, Utah beats Oregon, the Big Ten, plays itself out. Well, now all of a sudden you're sitting there with a 1-loss Cincinnati, a 1-loss Notre Dame, and a 1-loss Big 12 champ Oklahoma, basically vying for one of the last couple of spots. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Sooners could actually go from 13 late in November all the way into the top 4. It's really not outside of the realm of possibility. Wake Forest, I think, has a little bit more difficult road. They might need a little bit more to go on. But obviously, Michigan, Michigan State, and Ohio State are going to have a shot. And Notre Dame, people think I'm crazy. Notre Dame has got a legitimate shot at this thing when you start looking about what's ahead of them, who's going to play themselves out. So all of those teams that I mentioned that are not in the top 4 right now, Cincinnati, Michigan, Michigan State, Notre Dame, Wake Forest, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, all of those teams, you have a plausible road to the college football playoff. So I guess in the sense of we want more teams involved at the end of the season, we've got a little of that this year. This is maybe more teams than we've had in it at the end than previous seasons. And in that regard, it should be exciting here as we come down to the last couple of weeks of the regular season. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.